Welcome to the special meeting of the Board of Directors, Tuesday, June 11, and it's a special meeting starting at 6 p.m. So, a roll call, please.
Director Coverdale?
Here.
Director Feldman?
Here.
Director Mueller?
Here.
Vice President Reynolds?
Here.
President Michelson?
Here. Okay, and do we? Let's see. Okay, so pledge allegiance, please.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Great, thank you. Okay, moving on to public comment. Do we have, and I see for the most part staff. Is there any public comment? If not, we could move forward to the water shortage rates and water rate study financial plan. The good news is we're doing this in a time of plentiful water, but I'm sure we'll see a drought again. So, Mary, please.
Well, I'm going to let Jeff make the introductions.
Thank you, Mary. It's my pleasure to introduce Nancy Fan once again. Nancy, good to see you. Consultant for Water Resources Economics, or WRE. We had a board workshop that Nancy helped facilitate in April, late April. We talked about a draft financial plan, a draft cost of service assessment, and a draft water rates. Tonight, Nancy will take us through a fourth key element of our water rate plan, which is water shortage rates. So without further ado, Nancy, take us away. One other point, in our next board meeting, we will be having Nancy and Sanjay Gar present the draft water rate plan for your assessment. So this is the last step prior to us getting to that point. Nancy, thank you.
Thank you, everyone. It's good to see you again. Good evening. I know I only have 45 minutes to make this presentation and answer any questions, so I will just get straight to it. This presentation is related to water shortage rates, as Jeffrey mentioned. We've done this in prior rate studies, but just as a reminder, these rates are based on the district's water shortage contingency plan, which outlines stages 1 through 6 of water shortages, and it incorporates a couple of costs here. So the most important is the commodity revenue loss from the usage reductions related to each stage. The second is any changes to the SFPUC variable supply cost based on availability and amount of water produced in each stage. And then the final component is additional O&M expenses relating to anything the water shortage stage. And in this study, we're looking at stages 4 through 6 for those, which we'll go over in a later slide. So these rates are designed really just to maintain the district's financial position. So we're not looking to make any additional money. We are just trying to recover the same amount of money that we've seen in the regular financial plan, but this is with the usage reductions in each stage added in. And just as a reminder, usage reductions, these do not include anything related to fire protection services that will always be available in all stages of droughts. And that's a safety requirement. So for water shortage rates, there's a couple of procedural requirements to implement them or put them in place. The board first has to formally declare a water shortage emergency and what stage of water shortage emergency it is. The second is the board has to take action to implement the water shortage rates in that stage. And the third is the district has to send out a 30-day notice in the mail to all of its customers. Okay, and the rates shown in this presentation, they are under Prop 218, same requirements. The rates shown in this presentation are the maximum that the board can elect to implement in each stage. These water shortage rates really are just one of the tools that the district can use to respond to drought. So the district can opt to implement a partial water shortage rate, so lower than what we're showing in each stage. It can reduce its CIP spending, especially in the latter stages, use reserves, or any combination of the above. These are all tools that the district has to respond to these water shortages. Okay. The next couple of slides have a lot of numbers, but I will try to walk you through all of it and explain the assumptions and methodologies that we use to calculate the water shortage rates. So the first step is looking at how much usage can we expect to see from each customer class in each stage. So the baseline column right here is no drought. So this is how much we expect currently. And then stages 1 through 6 correlate with a 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, and 60% reduction overall. Okay, when we look at each customer class, the usage reduction is all the same. So for example, in stage 1, single family as a whole class reduces by 10%, multifamily by 10%, all other customers by 10%. But because single family residential has 3 tiers, the assumption that we've made here is that the usage reductions happen in the higher tiers first. And that's because typically customers using tier 3 usage or tier 2 usage have more of an ability to reduce their water usage than a tier 1 customer. And so in stage 1, all of that 10% reduction is happening in tier 3. In stages 2 through 3, we don't have any usage in tier 3. And then in stages 4, 5, and 6, where the usage reductions are more severe, we only have usage in tier 1 for single family residential.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
So what confuses me is a single family residential would typically have a lawn and it's a standalone house on a lot. Whereas a multifamily implies that it's higher density housing. Am I correct on that? Isn't that what we call multifamily? And therefore the yard is going to be smaller. It's higher density, right? So we have less outside watering. And so I'm kind of surprised where I've got higher density housing that they're able to reduce first, and the people with the lawn are assumed they won't turn it off. And so that's a lot harder for me to understand why that would be. You're showing the 10% reduction is taken out of multifamily and it's unchanged in single family residential, both in tier 1, tier 2. And I'm like, I don't quite get it.
Well,
That's because, oh, Mary, go ahead.
well, the use for the single family residential is coming out of tier 3.
It is which?
Coming out of tier 3. So that's the highest use. You would be getting rid of your extra use would be in tier 3 for watering a lot, for instance.
Okay, so what you're saying is the single family residential, we're assuming that they're in tier 3 because they're watering their lawn, they're watering the dog, and the car, et cetera. And so therefore their reduction would come out of tier 3, but the multifamily, it's going to hit them right on their water bill, right from the front. It seems a little counterintuitive to me that the multifamily is going to be able to reduce equally. And I'm not doing the percentage math, but that's a group that we know struggles to reduce their water use historically. And so it seems appropriate for us to pay attention to that as we look at this.
Noted.
Duly noted.
Okay. So just as a response to that, when we're looking at the usage reductions by stage, I've mentioned this to Mary and Jeff, but really this is just a projection, right? It's very hard to be able to accurately forecast which customer class and which tier are the customers actually going to reduce in each stage. And so typically we try to just look at overall usage reductions and make the best assumptions that we can, while recognizing that it's kind of an imperfect art to calculating these usage reductions.
We did this before once, right?
Right.
The protocol we used at that point
It's the same protocol we're using right now.
It's the same.
This was our previous approach and protocol to do the cross. It's not new, this is,
Exactly.
okay.
No.
So we're just following form. We're doing what we had established previously.
I think, Bob, why I'm most so curious is we just went through, what was that, a 5-year drought, right? And we had digital meters that were reporting in. So shouldn't we have the data from how we did in this drought, in this last drought? And it seems like that was the whole argument about having cellular data collection. We could get real-time data collection of that. And so why aren't we using that to look at who's reducing water in a drought?
Did you notice any usage changes in the patterns on the, the various classes of users? Kathleen would probably be the most knowledgeable. And I mean, we do watch what they do, and I
Yeah.
assume it hasn't varied, I'm not sure you couldn't see any different. I understand.
Yeah, I mean, there tends to be more leaks in multifamily.
Which don't change through a drought.
Master metered, yeah.
Yeah.
For, so there's a lot of nuances to that. So.
Okay.
Yeah, so what I'm hearing is it's an inexact science. We're doing the
Right,
best, we're
exactly.
doing the absolute best we can. So
Yeah.
let's move forward, but it's same questions. Okay, so Nancy, please.
Thank you. The next slide, we use the usage reductions and the projected usage in each stage in the previous slide, and we calculate how much commodity revenue from the quantity charges that the district is going to generate in each stage. So this baseline column, this is how much the first year of proposed water rates, that's how much the quantity charges are expected to generate. And then stage 1 through 6, we can see how much total commodity revenue that we are generating, and we compare that to the baseline in the commodity revenue loss line. So in stage 1, with a 10% overall reduction, we're expecting about a $1.4 million in commodity revenue loss. And then in stage 6, which is more severe, at 60% reduction, we can expect about a $7.1 million loss in commodity revenue.
That lock in front door.
Yeah.
So a lot scarier in stages 4 through 6, for sure. But it's all compared to the baseline, which is what you're currently expected to generate. Okay, so that is the commodity loss component of the water shortage rates. The next component is the SFPUC supply cost difference. So the main cost difference that we're showing here is really comes down to the availability of local supply. So in the baseline scenario, no drought, we're expecting 35% local supply, and 65% SFPUC. Once we get to stage 1, local supply reduces down to 25%, and we have to buy more water from SFPUC at 75%. In stages 2 through 3, local supply goes down to 6% only, and SFPUC water makes up 94% of all supply costs. Okay, and then stages.
Yeah, we actually are using the 6% in our in reviewing our SFPUC tier 2 negotiations and calculations.
Okay.
But we'll never get 100% at SFPUC, or they won't allow us, right? But I guess that's 100% of what we are going to need. All right.
Should be 100% of what we're using. Whatever. That was, even if it's less than what
Which will only be 94%.
Okay. And stages 4 through 6, we are not expecting any local supply at all. So SFPUC makes up the entirety of the water to supply to the district's customers. So we calculate how much water is produced for SFPUC. We multiply it by the same SFPUC net unit cost that we used in the financial plan of the water rate study. That's $5.28. We get the SFPUC variable cost. So under baseline, that's how much we are expecting with no drought. And then in stages 1 through 3, we can see that there is actually an increase to water supply costs because of the SFPUC water supply percentage here going up. So SFPUC water is obviously more expensive than local supply if we're purchasing more of it, even though we're reducing in stages 1, 2, and 3. We can see an increase in supply costs because we're purchasing more expensive water. In stages 4 through 6, we have some cost savings related to SFPUC water supply, even though the district has to purchase 100% of its water from SFPUC. That's because in these stages, the usage reductions are much larger, 40, 50, and 60% overall. So we are seeing some savings just purely from purchasing less water.
Not really savings, it's spending less.
Okay. So spending less,
Well, it's
using a lot.
minus. Less.
And then cost increases in stages 1 through 3. Is spending more on more expensive sources. Okay, so the water shortage costs, as I mentioned previously, there's 3 components. The first we went through is that commodity revenue loss. Then we have the supply cost difference for SFPUC costs. And the third is O&M expenses. And so these O&M expenses, these differences include hiring 2 full-time temporary positions, any additional outreach the district has to do, door tagging, purchases of bottled water, etc. And that's $250,000 in stages 4, 5, and 6. We are not expecting to see any additional O&M expenses in stages 1, 2, and 3. Okay, when we add those 3 components together, this line, this total cost line, this is how much the water shortage rates are designed to recover in each stage. And this percent change from revenues is the percent that we are increasing the quantity charges in order to make up this amount of revenue in each stage of water shortage. Okay.
What a record, Mary. What's the worst we had? What stage was the most we've ever gone to? 3, right? For a little bit, 2. 2. We never, I thought we went to 3 for a little bit. 2 is as high as we've ever been in the last 5 years. Is that correct? Okay. So again, this is for planning and for information, and with the hope that, as noted at the beginning, this would never be something that would we would have to hopefully, deal with. But you got to have the information. Good.
Yep. Okay. So this slide shows the proposed water shortage rates for the first year of rates, which is fiscal year 2025. The first part of the table here is the incremental water shortage rates. So these are added on top of the quantity charges in each stage to make up that amount of water shortage costs that we saw in the previous slide. And then the bottom part of the table is the combined commodity charge. So these rates right here under the baseline column in combined, that is the first year of proposed water rates that we've been talking about over the past couple of months. And in stage 1, we just add these together. And this is the total amount of commodity charges that the district's customers is expected to pay in each stage. And so for the other 2 years of rates, so 2026 and 2027, these rates will increase at the same rate as the financial plan. So that's 8% annually. We are not showing the latter 2 years in this presentation. Okay, and this is, go ahead, Mary.
No, I was just want to make a comment. This is the maximum that the board could decide to enact in the, so you don't have to do anything, or you can go up to the amount that would be in those rates.
Great.
Could we anticipate the state putting more pressure on districts in California like they're doing already in this kind of situation on the water shortage?
Well, it's already something that they ask us if we've implemented water shortage rates
Yeah.
or drought rates. So it's already on their radar. They're already looking at that. And so it's good. In the last drought where we had water shortage rates, the board decided not to implement them when we went to stage 2. So there is a lot of flexibility depending on the circumstances surrounding the water shortage.
Thank you.
And just to reiterate, yeah, these are the maximum that the board can elect to implement, but like, is that Kathleen? I can't see. As Kathleen, I believe, said, the board can elect to not implement, use reserves, reduce CIP, or respond to water shortages in other ways. This is just kind of a planning exercise to see how much is the maximum that the district needs to implement to recover the same amount of revenue. Okay, this slide shows a comparison between the current water shortage rates and the first year of proposed water shortage rates that we calculated in this study. Okay. So they're a little bit different. You know, the methodology and assumption, or the methodology is the same, the assumptions are slightly different, and so they relate to different water shortage rates. These are the current, these are the proposed.
So they're actually less than what we had in our last plan.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. In some of the stages 1 through 2, there's less.
Publicly communicate that.
Okay. So the next couple of slides in this presentation are for the residential drought impacts in each stage, so stages 1 through 6. This is for a single-family residential customer, an average single-family residential customer with a 5/8 inch meter, which is the most common, using 5 HCF of use a month, which is the average use for this class. And so for this customer, if there is no drought and they're using 5 HCF of water, their monthly water bill is $105.89. So that's the first column. The second column is if there is a drought, there's a stage 1 water shortage, but they don't reduce their water usage. And so they're still using 5 HCF of water. Their water bill, once the water shortage charges are implemented, their water bill will be $116.10. The third column is if this customer reduces based on how much they need to reduce in each stage. So this is stage 1, there's a 10% reduction. They would be using 4.5 HCF. Their bill will stay at $105.57. So the way that these water shortage rates are designed is if they reduce the amount as much as the stage requires them to reduce, their water bill stays pretty much the same as in no drought. And then if they don't reduce, then their bill will see an increase. Okay. So in stage 2, it follows the same kind of structure. This is the no drought, 105. Drought with no reduction, they're still using 5 HCF of water, they're not reducing at all. Their bill goes up to $130. And then if they reduce their usage by 20% in stage 2, using 4 HCF of water a month instead of 5, their monthly water bill is $105. Okay. And then stage 3, so all of it kind of follows the same structure, except this middle column here gets worse and worse as each drought stage, water shortage stage gets more severe. So, you know, their water bill goes up to $142, but if they reduce, it actually goes lower to $104.76. They're using 3.5 HCF by reducing 30% of their usage. Same thing with stage 4. This column gets bigger to 163. And then with 40% reduction, they're using 3 HCF of water instead of 5. That's about 106. Same thing here. with 50% reductions in stage 5. And then finally, stage 6, this is a 60% reduction. If they don't reduce their water usage, their bill more than doubles. But if they do reduce their usage 60% using only 2 HCF of water a month instead of 5, their bill is 102.
So, thank you. I think it was, those first few slides were a little scary, but these last 6 really showed if our customers do indeed cooperate with the required reduction, there will be no financial pain. I mean, it'll be a pain reducing the water, but there will not, we're not implementing financial pain. So this is, I believe, very, very fair. And this, I think, is as a direct result of board direction the last time we addressed this. So thank you for listening to the board and board's concerns about our customers. So I definitely will take questions from fellow board members.
I was just gonna say, all we have to do is convince people in stage 6 that they can buy something with $3.75. But at least it's a positive incentive. So that's good.
But
One of the issues that came up during the last drought was the surcharges that San Francisco hits us with if we don't meet the reductions that they're hitting us with. And so that was something I think the board really struggled with. Are we going to address that at this round? Are we going to keep kicking that one down the can? What's our plan?
Well, first of all, we do have written into our rate schedule if there is a pass-through charge, if there is an additional charge that San Francisco would charge us just in general for use of water, we can pass it along. So that's in our rates. If we're looking at penalties for exceeding our allocations, then that would need to go into, and you can confirm, Patrick, that would need to go into more of a penalty and be part of an ordinance.
So that would be part of an ordinance, not part of our water rates. And the reason I bring it up, and I don't have an answer, but when I polled my constituents on this topic, I was really surprised that they seemed pretty split down the middle, that half of them wanted the water district to manage their excessive use through a rainy day fund, and half felt that the surcharge should be passed on to the people who were not conserving. And frankly, that surprised me, and it left me feeling that the penalty is a bit of a controversy that we should talk about before we're stuck in a drought and San Francisco's whacking us with a big penalty. And we're like, okay, what do we do with that? And so one of the things I'm curious about is, since this rate is specifically to be activated when there's a drought and we're getting hit with San Francisco, mandatory droughts, why not roll in the penalty clause part of this as part of this water rate, drought emergency response, rather than make it a separate ordinance? So in other words, could we not just have a part of this rate say, hey, if there's a penalty, we have the right to apply that to people who aren't reducing? Go ahead, Patrick, weigh in.
Yeah, and I know Nancy might have some thoughts on this as well. So what we're setting this up for, my understanding is, we're going to have these rates. Water shortage rates are subject to Prop 218 because they are property-related fees. They're basically a water rate. And we're designing those rates now to be adopted at the same time we adopt our regular water rate increases. And there's going to be a San Francisco pass-through for increases in wholesale charges, both for regular water rates, and if they have one for water shortage rates, that would be built in as well. So just want to be sure I understood that approach. Is that right?
Yes.
For the SFPC pass-through?
But at this point, we never saw something like that with the last drought. But yes.
Correct, but that's the methodology.
Right.
And then if there's a penalty, that's not subject to Prop 218. because it's not a property related fee. And so if San Francisco imposes a penalty on us, we would need to figure out a different way to collect those charges, depending on how San Francisco might implement that penalty on us. And if we want to try to figure that out now, it would be different from what we're analyzing now. We could do that, or we could kind of figure out, what they're doing at the time they're doing it, and then see how we're going to implement it. Because it was kind of our approach last time.
Because it's not subject to 218, we have the flexibility to do that analysis as it comes.
That's a
Correct.
Yeah, okay.
Right.
And one of the problems currently with the way San Francisco has it in the water service agreement is they don't assess whether you've gone over your allocation until after the end of the fiscal year.
Seriously?
And we don't know it's not, they keep track month to month, but they don't assess, so they assess it after a year.
That's
And
after.
and then we don't know, I'm not sure at what point we'd even know what the penalty is.
Yeah.
And
how they would assess it. And right now we are in the middle of our negotiations to determine if we go to tier 2 in stage for San Francisco, how that's going to be implemented. So that's being negotiated, and there are implications that you'll be hearing about probably this summer. It's getting we're close to. We've been going through 2 years of discussions.
But let me recap what I think I understand what Kathleen's saying. So if in September, our constituents use more water than San Francisco has allocated to us, we won't get an October bill from San Francisco saying, hey, you use too much water, we're gonna whack you with a fine.
right, it won't be month to month. It'll be
okay.
summed up at the end, because
Okay.
1 month, their thought is 1 month you could go over, next month you could.
So it's an annual
Yeah.
average, okay. Kathleen, that's really helpful, because I had thought that it was sort of a punitive thing that was real time, in which case I would think we would want to respond to our constituents real time and say, hey, you haven't cut back and here's the penalty. But it sounds like what you're explaining is, because it's an annual average, we'll have to watch the numbers, work for the goal, but we really are going to have to absorb it internally and not be dinging customers kind of responsively as directly because of a San Francisco.
But in the meantime, we can watch our individual customer usage.
Yeah, and this rate hits them pretty hard.
That was gonna be my observation as well. If we're over our allocations, because people are in that middle bar.
And that we'll know on a monthly basis.
Yeah.
And that we'll know, and we'll be receiving more revenue than this plan would imply.
Yeah. Okay, that makes sense. Thank you, Kathleen. I appreciate it.
And wouldn't you assume that the SFPUC would report to us monthly where we stand on water
We
use?
do.
Well, so we would still have an idea,
Yes.
and we could report that to our customers, right, and tell them, hey, we went over. And maybe the next month, everyone would rally and they would help us go under, right?
Yeah.
So I think that I'm all in favor of the idea of waiting and then sharing the penalty at the end. But I think that it's really important that we would watch that.
So
and report
our
that.
meters will foreshadow what
That's right.
SFPC is going to tell us at the end of the month, because we could do it daily or hourly.
Yeah, so
It'd be nice to hear it from them too.
Sure.
So in the last drought, they sent us a spreadsheet every month. The problem is truing it up because it's not, it doesn't match our billing cycles or, So, it's still very useful information, but, and we have our own records. So it is something we can track and communicate with the customers, but, there's always lag time, and they read the meters at a different time than we do, and things like that.
Complexities.
They're complex.
Wonderful.
So again, we're using the same model as we did the previous time for this approach. So everything is consistent with
We just
what we
need-
did.
Yeah, we just.
And the
use-
penalty stuff, which could be interesting. We have to think about longer term going forward when we get to that.
But in the meantime, they'll see that financial penalty on a monthly basis.
Yeah, okay, no, I'm good with the way we're approaching it right at this moment.
Yeah, I will say, that the last drought, we saw a significant decrease in water use. The good news, we were able to use our local sources. We had a miracle rain in October of 2021, where we had like 5 inches in October, and I think we had like 8 inches in December, and it was like, and so that saved us, but we were in mode of that we would probably have to be implementing this, so.
Well, good. Thank you. So now the public knows this is all in place. This meets all reporting requirements, meets 218, and we will look forward to adopting this when we adopt our rate increase. Is that correct?
Yeah, I just want to be sure Nancy has all the input that she needs from the directors on this particular.
Yeah, does any director want any tweaks, or are we comfortable with what they've produced?
The only last comment I would make is I feel very strongly that with each drought we go through, it's going to be harder and harder for our constituent base to make the reductions. And it worries me that we need to be proactive in thinking or planning for that eventuality. And so some of the concerns I have is we've got pretty aggressive tiers for the reduction that are on this plan. And I'm concerned that our constituents won't be able to meet those. I get it that the rates will go up accordingly because we've built the rates that way. So our revenue should be okay, but the trauma to our constituents will not be insignificant. And then the second thing that I'd like to capture is that we, at each drought cycle, this is going to be harder and harder each drought cycle for the constituents to conserve. And so I think that I don't see us 20 years from now being able to put this plan forward the way we have right now, because we'll have gone through 3 more drought cycles and our clients will be harder pressed to make a 30% reduction. And so I think that that's something that maybe doesn't have to be addressed today in this rate plan, but I'd like to throw a foreshadowing that 5 years from now, 7 years from now, when we do this again, we can't just keep doing this. And it's already been brought up that we're doing what we did the last rate drought cycle. And I'm okay with that, but I think we as the board better pay attention that this is not going to keep working.
Need some more local water.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, John.
Well, I think this is a classic example of the experience and the history board and staff has with this district to be prepared for the unexpected. And it goes exactly what you were just saying, Vice Chair, to my little statement. Effective leadership understands value. We got to put that on the wall because you guys all have done a great job with that leadership for the value of this district and staff included.
Good. Thank you. Thank you to staff. Thank you to fellow board members. And the good news is Sites Reservoir did clear a major hurdle. It's still not quite there, but we may actually be developing more storage in the state of California, and it's a long time coming. So that is a solution in and of itself, that we really start looking at this long-term and start developing more. And this is the poster child for what everyone wants, off-stream storage. So this, hopefully the state will understand the value, because like you say, locally, we are really, we pretty much tapped out our local sources here. And we need to look at this, not only at the federal level, but the state level. And so we'll see how that goes and vote accordingly. Thank you. Thank you, Nancy.
Thank you.
Thank you.
This is informational.
Good work.
Yeah.
Good work.
Thank you, and I'm signing off now.
Okay, thank you.
Please
Have a good night.
do. And Okay. We can adjourn the 6 o'clock meeting. Yeah, we can take a 20-minute break in anticipation of our 7 o'clock meeting. Thank you.
Recording stopped.
Okay.